Well, hey everybody, how you doing? It's Friday yet again. Comes around this day every week, and probably will for so far in the future as we can see, so we might as well enjoy it. Well, our two shoutouts for this Friday are, the first one is Little John MD, and John does metal detecting, which is what the MD stands for, but he also does bottle digging and other types of treasure hunting. And quite a knowledgeable fellow and interesting to watch, so I encourage you to check out his channel if you don't watch him already, Little John MD. And our second channel is one I enjoy, I look forward to every Friday, and a fellow by the name of Sean does the channel, and the channel name is Bits of Real Panther. Bits of Real Panther. And he does a variety of things, mostly comedy, and just a great sense of humor and a fun channel to watch. So check out Bits of Real Panther. Alrighty, now the part you look forward to, I think. I hope you do anyway. And it's our story of the week. And this week's story is an interesting one about a fellow named John Lee. It's John L-E-E. And it's called The Trap Wouldn't Spring. The Wouldn't Spring. Okay? It says, on the morning of February 23rd, 1885, John Lee was taken from his cell at Exeter Prison, England, and led to the gallows in the prison yard. He had been condemned to death for murdering his employer, a wealthy old woman named Emma Ann Kesey, who had been found with her throat cut and her head battered by a hatchet. It had been a brutal murder, and Lee's guilt had seemed evident. He had a criminal record, and it was obvious that he hated Mrs. Keyes. Now he climbs the steps onto the scaffold. His arms are pinioned behind him, and the hangman, Mr. Barry, puts a white bag over his head and guides him onto the trap door. The noose is placed around his neck. Has he any last words? No, says Mr. Lee. Drop away. The sheriff of Exeter gives the signal. Mr. Barry pulls back the bolt on the trapdoor. At this point, the trap should open. Lee should fall, should be jerked by the tightening noose, and die of suffocation or a broken neck. The bolt is pulled. Nothing holds the trapdoor in place, but it does not open. Lee stands there, the bag over his head, the noose around his neck. They shuffle him to one side and try the trap. It opens smoothly as soon as the bolt is pulled. Again they maneuver Lee onto the trapdoor. The sheriff signals, and Mr. Barry again withdraws the bolt. Again John Lee stands there, poised above eternity on a trapdoor that refuses to open. They take him back to his cell. Now the sheriff investigates. The trapdoor works perfectly. To make absolutely sure, the hangman stands on it, hanging onto the rope with his hands. When the bolt is pulled, the door opens and he falls through. They send for Lee again. Again the bag, the noose, the signal. Again, nothing. The door stays closed. Someone suggests that the door has been swollen by recent rains. Its edges are planed to increase clearance. The morning is cold, and the witnesses, there were newspaper men among them, shiver. John Lee is shivering too. They stand him onto the trapdoor. They pull the bolt. He remains there, as though an immovable mountain were underneath his feet. The bolt is slid away as it should. Nothing supports the trap, but it supports John Lee as though a mountain of rock is wedged underneath it. They take Lee back to his cell. The sheriff, baffled, writes to the Home Secretary, who orders a stay of execution. From one end of England to the other, the newspapers are full of the story. John Lee, the man they couldn't hang. The situation is without precedent, and is debated at length in the House of Commons. Eventually, John Lee's sentence was changed to one of life imprisonment, and after 22 years, in December of 1907, he was released on parole. He married, unsuccessfully, and ended his days as a junk dealer in London. He is thought to have died in 1943. The official explanation for Lee's escape, as detailed in the Annual Register of 1885, was that rain had caused the trapdoor of the gallows to swell and made it inoperable. A more colorful and less patently fictitious explanation given by former convict Frank Ross was that the gallows had been built by a highly skilled joiner, himself previously condemned to death, and then reprieved, who had engineered the trap to be jammed by the weight of the chaplain standing next to it. If this was the case, it was never discovered during the minute official investigation of the scaffold, and it seems unlikely that during all the successful tests of the door, no one should have happened to activate the jamming mechanism, or that the prison chaplain should have stood in exactly the right spot to activate it throughout each of the 4 attempts to execute John Lee. So there you have it. Mr. John Lee, the man they could not hang. So what do you think of that? I'll leave it to you to decide what was going on there. If it's something supernatural or who knows, but an interesting story. Alright, and now for that lovely moment. The moment you all wait for. The Groaner of the Week. Well, years ago, at an army camp, there was a mix-up in orders and in equipment being sent to the right place at the right time, and on this specified day they were supposed to have war games, but none of the equipment had arrived, and so they had all these soldiers there. So the fellows who were in charge, the officers in charge, divide the soldiers into 2 groups or teams, if you will, and they designate one the red team, and they scramble around and they manage to find bits of red cloth so that each one can have a little red flag on his epaulet, on his shoulder, so they know they're the red team. The other fellows, they couldn't find anything blue, so they said, if you don't have a red patch on your shoulder, you're a part of the blue team. Now, how are we going to work this? We have no rifles, we have nothing. They just had the men and the area to play the war game out in, and that was it. So finally, the general who was overseeing the whole thing says, all right, this is what we're going to do. Everybody listen up. If you see an enemy, you go like this and say, bang, bang. And the enemy has to fall down dead. If you go bang, bang, or the enemy's somewhere where you can't shoot them, you can sneak up on them and you can go, stab, stab. And the enemy has to fall down dead because it's like you stabbed them with your bayonet. And if it's a situation that calls for it, you find a machine gunner's nest or something like that, you can throw a grenade in there. And to do that, you yell, lob, lob. And the people that you're throwing at have to pretend that they've been killed by a grenade. Does everybody understand the rules? They all, yes, sir. All right, let's commence the game. So the games commence, and they're going pretty well. Sorry, I got mustache hairs. Going pretty well, and this young soldier sees, he's laying prone in the grass, and he sees an enemy soldier coming across the field towards him. So he jumps up and he goes, bang, bang! The guy doesn't stop, he just keeps walking slowly towards. Well, that's not right, so he runs towards the guy and he goes, stab, stab! The guy turns slightly and just keeps moving. So the fellow thinks, this isn't right, so he steps back and he goes, lob, lob! The fellow doesn't stop, he just keeps moving. So finally the soldier runs at the guy and does a football tackle around his knees, brings him to the ground, and says, hey buddy, you're not playing fair. You know the rules. When I went bang, bang, you were supposed to drop dead. When I said stab, stab, you were supposed to drop dead. And when I went lob, lob, you were supposed to drop dead, and you didn't do any of those things. That's not fair. You're not playing by the rules. And the guy looks at him and goes, rumble, 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 I'm a tank. There you go. There's your bad groaner for this week. Hope you all have a fabulous weekend. Until next Tuesday, take care, stay safe, and God bless.